From the center of the universe, now in its 7th season covering your 19-time Grey Cup champion Toronto Argonauts, it's the X's and Argos podcast with Argos color analyst Ben Grant and Coach JB.
Welcome to the X's and Argos pregame walkthrough brought to you by Something in the Water Brewing. My name is Ben Grant, joined as always by JB, and we are here to get you set for Toronto's 2025 home opener, the Grey Cup banner-raising game. The first 10,000 fans are getting replica rings. This is a huge week to get things started for the Toronto Argonauts at home at BMO Field. For 2025. Here's what's on the docket for this episode. We're going to get JB's take on Saturday's opener. We didn't get a chance to hear from him in the post-game reaction, so we'll hear what JB has to say. Plus, we want to discuss some problems in pass protection, what that looked like. And is there maybe a tell that the Argos have in their run game, and what might that entail? Plus, there are some transactions of note involving Ka'Deem Carey, Jaron Mitchell as well, two running backs, or two former Argo running backs. The Grey Cup rings were unveiled at Sunday's Grey Cup ring distribution party. Plus, we've got all of our usual stuff, the game preview, pick six, OCDC, one thing, put me down for 20, challenge flag, and, of course, contest winners, one for Pick 6, and our ticket giveaway, courtesy of Something in the Water Brewing. All that and more coming up on this episode of the X's and Argos podcast. JB, before we get going, this is the time to talk about Something in the Water Brewing. The home opener is coming up. It's perfect. It's 4 o'clock. You got to get down to Something in the Water Brewing in Liberty Village. It's just steps from BMO Field. JB, you're going to be there with me on Saturday?
Yeah, looking forward to it.
Awesome. Yeah, we'll get down there on Saturday. Maybe there's some Longboat Pale Ale. We'll have to see what sort of selection there is as well. There's so many great award-winning beers, but a lot of Argos fans always pregame. You guys, our listeners are awesome at supporting our sponsors. Something in the Water has been amazing over the last few years, and it's great to see you guys down there. Hopefully, we can catch up on Saturday afternoon. Pregame, Something in the Water Brewing. Be there. Okay, JB, let's turn it over to you. You had some technical difficulties during our post-game reaction pod. What were your overall thoughts? You don't need to do a whole podcast here, but generally, what did you take out of that game?
I wasn't about to do a whole podcast. Well, they were not very good. I wouldn't panic yet, but I wouldn't not panic. They had a lot of problems. The offensive line was not very good. The defensive line was not very good. Quarterback play was not very good. Special teams was not particularly good. So, I mean, they look like a team that did not necessarily run many starters out in the second exhibition game. I don't know whether that had any impact on it. Montreal looked like a team that was ready to start the season, and Toronto did not. I think this game coming up is huge. I don't think the game was quite as poor as the score indicated. I think there were a couple of bad breaks for the Argos. Had they gone a different way, the game might have been a little tighter, but they were beat pretty soundly, and I think this game is going to be a huge litmus test, even if they don't win, at the very least to be competitive, because they were probably the least competitive team in the league in week one.
I think Edmonton might
give them
they're
a run
right
for
their
there.
money,
That's not somebody you want to be sitting beside on the bench.
And Hamilton got off to a terrible start. They did turn it on at the end, but yeah, they were down early. But yeah, they didn't look good. And what's so strange about it, and the reason it alarms me, is that Coach Dinwiddie's teams have never come out like that. Right? This is the first time he's ever lost the opening game of the season, and he's had quarterback problems before. Remember his very first year, Arbuckle was supposed to be the guy, got banged up in camp. Macbeth suddenly was thrust into that starting role, and they won in Calgary, a place that they never won. And every year it seemed like something. Last year, of course, they had Cameron Duke starting. They won that game. He's found ways to get the team to rally and to look good. It's not always perfect. It's not always fully polished, but they're ready to fight. And it didn't really look like that this week. Now, it is also the toughest test. You couldn't have scheduled a more difficult game. There's nowhere else. I would after, you might say, well, playing at Winnipeg is tough. Yes, but the way that Montreal went out last year after winning the one seed, going into Montreal was always going to be a really tough ask, especially with that like entire squad brought back basically. I don't think there was going to be a tougher game in the CFL for the Argos in week 1. So I'm going to chalk some of it up to that. In terms of...
I mean, I agree. I mean, I think Montreal, we both feel Montreal probably has the best defense in the league.
Oh, yeah.
And so that's a big challenge for an offense that is, not running with its starting quarterback. And, essentially, if you don't have your starting quarterback, you're not going to win very many games. So that's just the reality of professional football.
Let's transition into talking a little bit about the offensive line, because I think that was a positional group that surprised some people. Like, I don't know. I don't think we're surprised that the defensive line struggled at times. I think there were going to be those moments. I thought they played better than you gauged their play. To me, it was just inconsistent more than anything else on the D line, and they struggled against the run. But offensive line wise, that surprised me, because this should be, I believe, on paper anyway, it should be the best offensive line in the league. It really should. They struggled week 1. Now, in my rewatch, I always grade offensive line play. This one was very interesting to me. This stood out more than I think any other game that comes to mind immediately in terms of grading offensive line. It wasn't that they all played poorly. I didn't realize how complex what Montreal was doing was until rewatch. When I started looking back at, well, what was giving the Argos O-line so much trouble? Montreal's defensive line movement and linebacker movement was highly complex. They had so much action, and for week 1 especially, you don't normally see this stuff. And we're talking about looping several gaps over. You're talking about showing 7 and sometimes sending only 2, and those 2 guys actually getting home. Like, it was a masterful plan. It was very smooth. That's what you get when you have so many pieces returning, like the Alouettes do on that defensive side of the ball. And so I do think you have to consider that when you're evaluating the offensive line play for the Argos and the pass protection in particular. The individuals, I thought George Moore and Sage Dockstader struggled a bit. It's surprising in that they looked so good in preseason. I thought they were awesome in preseason. It's not surprising in that it's their first career start, both of those guys. And so there is going to be a jump. I'm not concerned about either. I think that's okay. Again, it'd be a different thing if they struggle again this week, but I don't expect them to. The center play, I didn't think Sirocco was playing very well. But again, he hasn't played a football game in over a year. Nicastro came in and looked amazing. He was actually my highest graded lineman, and then Ryan Hunter at right tackle was just behind him. Everyone else after that was well back. And Anthony Vandal at right guard he was similarly graded to Moore and Dockstader. So overall, I don't know, like what's the alarm for you, JB? Like, looking, if they repeat that performance again against Calgary, is that enough for you to now say, okay, we need to change something?
Yeah, I'd have to say yes. I think, I wouldn't say, well, that's it, the season's over. I think if they have significant offensive line challenges again, that's a big concern. I mean, without Kelly in there, I can't really bang the offense for too much. Like, it's going to look like what it's going to look like. And defensively, it's a rebuilding year on the defensive line. I think the one area I'll be looking at for sure is offensive line and running back. I think that if you once again, the offensive line is kind of in shambles and the running game is non-existent, that is, I would have to say, pretty deeply concerning.
Speaking of running backs, do you know who had my highest pass protection grade of every Toronto Argonaut on Saturday or Friday?
No, who's that?
Deontay McMahon. had my highest pass blocking grade. I was not expecting that. He was awesome. He wasn't called upon a ton, but it was still, I don't know, 7 or 8 reps, and he handled just about every single one perfectly. There was one where he could have probably taken the inside guy, took the outside guy, but both were going to get through. Both were going to hit Arbuckle. He took one of them cleanly. That was the only area where I saw, well, maybe there was something there. He looked outstanding in pass protection. So I think that's a real positive sign. But let's transition into the running game. We'll talk about, obviously that's huge for McMahon to have that kind of pass protection grade is so confidence inspiring because it means you can have him out on the field as much as you like. That's the most important job to me for any running back in the CFL is pass protection. So him performing at that level, I don't recall a game where I had him ranked anywhere near as high with anywhere near as many opportunities as that. So into the run game, this was problematic. So on average, Argos running backs were getting hit a yard deep. The first contact they felt was a yard deep into their backfield. And that is a very difficult position to put your running backs in, especially guys like Mayan Williams who are north-south runners. Like if you're getting hit a yard deep, it's tough for you to do much. And that stat doesn't include that 9-yard loss we saw Williams take because that was waved off due to a penalty, objectionable conduct penalty on Montreal that negated that 9-yard loss. And on that play, he was actually hit 6 yards in the backfield. So those are very concerning things. You don't want your running game not even able to get to the line of scrimmage, clearly. But there was something odd to me in rewatch, and I want your take on this, JB. It looked to me like Montreal knew when Toronto was running. There was one play in particular where it wasn't at all a run situation. It just seemed like such an unlikely thing to do in that scenario. And yet, Toronto lined up, and Montreal had everybody in position to stop the run. And sure enough, the ball snapped, and they come flying through and stuffed the running back in his tracks. Is it possible there is some sort of tell on the offensive side of the ball? Somebody maybe keying whether or not it's a run play or pass play, something like that. You rarely see that at the professional level. That's far more common in college and high school. Is there something that maybe someone is doing that's tipping their hand?
There was nothing that jumped out.
No.
Now, look, you have two very new to the CFL anyways, linemen. It's possible that they saw a tell from the exhibition. They played in the exhibition game. It's possible. Watching film, they saw a tell. I wouldn't say that's impossible. Watching the game, I kind of chalked it up to just not respecting the pass at all, and essentially they were just coming on a pseudo run blitz on almost every down because they just were not afraid of Arbuckle getting outside them or Arbuckle running or Arbuckle throwing the ball. So they just unleashed the hounds and let that run the whole game. But yeah, I'm sure the coaching staff will take a look at that because you're right. There were a couple of times like on long downs when there was no reason to believe there was a run. They were essentially run blitzing.
Yeah, it was odd. And I looked back as carefully as I could. I couldn't see a thing. And so, maybe it's good luck on Montreal's part, or maybe they found some tendencies that they're trying to capitalize on. I didn't see anything, but it struck me as unusual on a couple of occasions. So just interesting, something to look out for this week because teams are pretty good at self-correction too. So if there's something Montreal saw, you can bet Coach Sweet noticed it in his film this week. And so I'm sure that will be corrected. And I'm sure it's something that Calgary was probably looking at too. Just like, how are they on these guys? Like what tipped them off? I'm always remembered of the old, or reminded of the old Coach episode. And this is dating us a little bit. Coach, a fantastic sitcom, football-based sitcom back in, that's 80s, early 80s. And they had an opponent whose knuckles would turn white every time it was a run play because he was leaning forward, and that was sort of a tell that they had keyed on to win some sort of championship. But that's what I'm always reminded of when I think about O-linemen and tells. That last thing that you said, JB, I want to just talk about before we move on from the run game. What was it about? So you mentioned Arbuckle as being potentially a contributing factor to what made it so difficult to run. Is it only lack of respect of the passing game that you see in terms of why it was so hard to run against Montreal?
Well, I mean, he's not very mobile, and obviously every year he's going to become less mobile than the year before. Um,
Join the club.
yes, as we all know. Um, so yeah, I mean, it definitely is a concern when anytime you don't have to respect the quarterback getting outside, you can be way more aggressive in your pass rush, and I think it just makes it so much harder because when you're rushing if you're rushing the passer, then if you hand off, like that's two birds, one stone for the defense. Like it's very difficult to run into a pass rush.
Yeah, and that's both running and passing, right? Like so in the run game, if you have no fear of the quarterback's mobility, when you go to hand that ball off, the guy who has contained can essentially cheat on that and go straight after the back, knowing that you rolling out there, even if you still have the ball, isn't really a threat. And in the passing game, it's deadly. We saw that a few times, actually. So, and one of the reasons I'm hesitant to really criticize George Moore, for example, he had a number of times where he knows his guy has contained responsibility. He's coming around the outside, and then he just makes a clean break into the B gap inside because he just wasn't worried about Arbuckle escaping the pocket that way and causing trouble. So a few times that did really impact the pass rush and pass protection. So I do think that's something that the Argos need to look at. Now, it's important to note that not having great mobility as a quarterback doesn't mean that that's the end of your football team. There have been plenty of fantastic offensive teams that have had great quarterback play, but you need to be able to punish them with the stuff you can do. You look at the Tom Brady's of this world, especially in the later years. It's not like he was running around all over the place, but he was threatening downfield. He was making accurate passes. He was getting the ball out quickly. And those are the kinds of things you need to do. You need to compensate with if you don't necessarily have that mobility. And that in turn will help the run game. When you've got play action and you're hitting off those play action passes, that's going to slow things down a little bit. It'll help your run game. It'll help your passing game, obviously, too. All right, JB, let's get into the transactions from this week. So two big transactions. Ka'Deem Carey signing in Saskatchewan, Jairo Mitchell being released from the Argos practice roster. What do you make of the Carey move? AJ Ouellette appeared to suffer a concussion last week. They bring in Ka'Deem Carey. This is concerning, knowing that Saskatchewan's coming up in a couple of weeks' time. And I think fans are ready to jump all over the Argos if Carey looks outstanding. Do you still stand by the move? I know you were very much in favor of going with the younger back in camp. Do you still stand by it here? Does this worry you that Carey is in Saskatchewan?
Well, I was fine with Brown being cut. I didn't have much to base it on. I didn't certainly see very much of Carey. So I did trust their camp view. And we'll see. Like, we'll see in that Saskatchewan game, how washed he is. But of course, it was a gamble when you cut, veteran all-star players and keep young players. You are rolling the dice, and there is definitely a chance that you could get burned the year you make that cut. Like, I think that is a gamble for sure. I mean, it'll be really interesting to see what he looks like in Saskatchewan. We didn't really have anything to base it on because he didn't play in the preseason at all, really. So I don't know how slow he looked in camp. I can only assume that he looked done.
It's so hard to tell with, when that point is, because there's nothing worse from a management standpoint than waiting too long, right? And being stuck and not having a plan B. Obviously, that's not ideal. And so you want to try and find that point. But it's hard. And, sometimes you get it right. Sometimes you don't. We've seen the Argos get it right a number of times where they've moved on from someone, they've gone somewhere else, and they just haven't looked the same. And you're like, yeah, that was the right time to do it.
I mean,
but it's tough.
Saskatchewan, they're signing him for nothing. I mean, it's an easy gamble for them. So I wouldn't. It's not like they traded for him. I wouldn't get too excited about another team signing him for essentially for free.
I think it's more in Saskatchewan. I actually think it's more like them thinking to themselves, we got to platoon somebody here with AJ Ouellette. I don't think it's necessarily about the injury this week, being the concussion. I think it's more they're looking at it and they're like, yeah, I don't know if we can have Ouellette out there as an every down 25 carries a game kind of back.
Especially new, like, slim down Ouellette.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's part of it.
I'm happy for him, but I think most people who saw that knew that that was probably not a great idea to radically change your body shape from the shape that made you a professional athlete.
It so rarely works out in athletes' favor. I get why they think that, and I get what his thinking was. But yeah, you're right. Like if you get to the league as this kind of back with this kind of body type, it is almost always a disservice to change that, whether you're a receiver, a running back, a DB. I think it sometimes does work with linemen. We see them when they go from NFL to CFL and they have to change body type. You got to drop 50 pounds of weight or whatever that can work. But yeah, for skill position players, it's pretty tough because it changes the way that you play the game. And that is not an easy thing to adjust to. And you probably shouldn't adjust to it. It's why you were great. So yeah, it's going to be interesting to see. But I think Argos fans are going to be watching carefully this week. And if Ka'Deem Carey puts up like 200 yards, you're going to hear it all over social media. I'm hearing it already. So we'll see. And then paired with the Jaron Mitchell release too.
Yeah, keep your powder dry for at least another 2 weeks.
Yeah, agreed. On Sunday, the Argos had their ring get-together, the unveiling of the Grey Cup rings. They brought in all the players and personnel. There's some great videos on social media of players looking at the rings for the first time. Demonte Coxey's is probably the best that I've seen. Some of them are fantastic. Give me your overview. What do you think of the rings?
Yeah, look, I think the reaction says it all.
Yeah,
it's exciting. It's well deserved, the celebration. Yeah, it's fun. I like the giveaway on opening on the home opener. I'm all for. I'm all for it. I mean, of course, there's always something amusing about jewelry being the prize for the most macho league in the world. And so I enjoy that as well.
Yeah, I've come to terms with that. I like football rings a lot. I'm not a fan of the ring that separates like the Star Trek ship.
I like that. No, I like that.
I know a lot of people love it. I'm in the minority there, but I don't like them. I think it was Kansas City, the first team to do that. I think they took off the top of the ring, but I don't like that because I would lose that, and I cherish my rings, and I don't want to lose half of my ring. I don't really want a section that comes off. I want to keep it all together. It's a beautiful looking ring. The only thing I would change is not having the removable part, but it does look fantastic. And with all of these rings, another thing I love is the symbolism in them. And the Argos put out a video actually, as well as a chart kind of talking about the different things in the ring. And you can find that on argonauts.ca and on their socials. But yeah, if you want to take a closer look yourself, you can get the replica ring this Saturday. You just got to be one of the first 10,000 fans at the game. All right, JB, game preview. Calgary's coming to town off a big win, Vernon Adams and everything. Is this as close to a must-win game as you can have in early June? Because obviously there's no such thing as a must-win in June, but it feels important though to me. This feels like a game they really have to win.
I don't think so. Honestly, I guess a little blasé about this. I had, in my own kind of predictions, I had them going, 2-4 in their first 6 games without Chad. I think that's fine if they don't win this game. It'd be nice to win. I'm really more interested in how they lose the game if they do lose, in terms of were they able to work on some of their flaws from the Montreal game. But, I mean, Hamilton lost and Ottawa lost. There's plenty of time in the East, so I would keep calm, as they say, and carry on.
I think this is just not Ka'Deem Carey on. But
Yeah, could you
I
keep calm
think
and Ka'Deem carry on to Saskatchewan?
I think this is an important game. I think you don't want doubt to start creeping in. There's been a lot of turnover on the Argos defense, especially this year. There's a lot of guys that weren't around for all of this winning, that weren't around for the 2 Grey Cups or even 1 Grey Cup. And I think doubt can be really dangerous, and it can really spread. I think it's a pretty important thing for the Argos to come out, and I think that I don't think Calgary is that good a team. I think they're better than most people thought they were preseason, but still, I don't think they're a great football team. And I think that at home, it's going to be a good sized crowd. You've got the banner raising, you've got the rings. Everyone's going to be really excited. It'll be a great environment Saturday afternoon. I think this is a pretty important one to win, because I think if you can't beat Calgary at home, I don't care who your quarterback is, if you can't beat Calgary at home in front of a good crowd like that, your first home game of the season, and knowing how good Dinwiddie's teams have been at home at BMO Field, I think that is concerning, because he's beat teams like Winnipeg with backup quarterbacks coming into BMO Field. It's not something that is easy for other teams to do, to come into BMO Field and win. And so Arbuckle, being the veteran he is, if he's the starter, I think he's probably going to be. We don't know that for sure this week. We'll get into that in a moment. But I do think I think that's something to be concerned about if you drop that game.
I'm more of the mind of how they play. If they play competitively, I'm okay with that. Now, if they play like they did against Montreal again, yes, I agree with you. That is definitely cause for concern, and of course, people can start to lose faith in the plan, can start, just look at Hamilton last year, look at Edmonton. It can get a little ugly. So I guess I half agree with you. I need them to play very competitively, but I don't hang it all on the win until Chad comes back.
Let's get into pick 6 before we get to our injury report, because it kind of ties into one of the topics on our injury report. So our pick 6 this week, brought to you by Something in the Water Brewing, goes to Peter Cooper, who sent us a fantastic question. And if we didn't choose your question, I loved the questions we got this week. We got like 25 awesome questions between Twitter and Blue Sky and emails and DMs. And so please keep sending those. Don't be discouraged that Peter won the beer this week, because it will be you at some point. Keep sending those questions. They are fantastic questions. But yeah, I thought Peter's was really good, and it tied into something I really wanted to talk about too. So first of all, Peter, you have won a 6-pack of beer from Something in the Water Brewing. Make sure you get down there, and maybe you go pregame and spread the wealth a little bit, and see how that goes as part of your pregame celebrations. But this is Peter's question. He said, I'm interested in your thoughts on the risk versus reward in terms of starting Chad Kelly at quarterback. He claims to be ready, and yet it appears Coach Dinwiddie is still a little hesitant to give him the ball. If he's the best chance to ensure the Argos avoid going 0-2 this week, should he start? Why don't you tackle that one first, and I'll follow up on what I feel you might have missed.
No, I don't think so. I think that you don't mess around with your quarterback. You absolutely want him to be 110% back before you put him out there. It's hard enough, even when you are 100% healthy, to play after an injury like that, just mentally, emotionally. So he's obviously not at 100%, being limited at practice, and there's a difference between like during the season being limited and coming back from a traumatic injury limited. So I would say no. You want to make sure that Kelly has absolute confidence in his body before you put him back out there. And even if you end up going 1-4, it's a long season, and Ottawa and Hamilton aren't going anywhere. The pace car is not lapping you.
I want to add to that. I agree with everything you said, and I'd be fine. Like as I said from the beginning, I was stunned they didn't put him on the 6th game because I felt like you want to make absolutely sure. And as you said, he's limited in practice today, yesterday. Hold on, there is no rush. Ease him back in. He is the most important player on this football team. You do not want to put him in a situation where he's out for the rest of the season. And I want to add to that, quarterback it's kind of a different spot when it comes to knee injuries, leg injuries, in this case, broken bone. It is so difficult for quarterbacks coming back from those injuries to feel comfortable in the pocket. And if you don't feel comfortable in the pocket, you can't play quarterback. And so you need to make sure not just that he's physically able to play, you need to make sure that he's mentally able to play. And that's going to entail getting him a lot of reps in practice. That's going to be people, flying by him, bodies all around him standing in there making the throw. And until you as a coach see that part, it doesn't really matter what the trainers say and what your medical professionals say. Even if they say, yeah, it's 100%, everything's perfectly good, and he looks good in individual drills, if he's not got that level of comfort back yet, I think you have to wait and make sure he's at that point before sending him back in. So thank you for your question, Peter. It's an awesome question, and hopefully we answered it to your satisfaction. It is just too important a player to gamble with. JB, let's get into the rest of that injury report. So we talked about Chad being limited yesterday and today. In terms of the other guys on there, John Boss was back to full practice this week, both full yesterday and today. You had Janarian Grant still limited, so I think it's unlikely we'll see him this week. Limited yesterday, limited today. Wynton McManus limited yesterday and today. Now, there's a difference between and you had addressed this a minute ago, JB. There's a difference between Wynton's limited yesterday and today versus Chad Kelly's limited yesterday and today. They're both feeling discomfort, and it's quite possible. In fact, I'm probably confident that Wynton McManus is feeling more pain yesterday and today than Chad Kelly might have been. But this is one of those things where it's different coming back from a re-aggravated injury that he suffered during the game in Montreal versus coming back from a broken bone or knee surgery or whatever it is. And so I actually would lean towards Wynton playing simply because he was able to go back in and finish that game, and he was still on the field at the end when the game had basically been decided. So I do expect Wynton to play, even though he's been limited. Even if he's limited all week, I'd be surprised if we don't see McManus on the field. And then lastly, Donald Rutledge was limited yesterday, full today. He suffered a pretty big hit, looked really stunned, made a great tackle on the running back, got up very slowly. Immediately, Anthony Lanier was waving the trainers over like, hey, you got to come get this guy out of here. But he was practicing full today. We'll see how he responds tomorrow and how he makes his way through protocol, if he is in concussion protocol, and how that works out for his chances of playing this week. All right, JB, it is time for OCDC. For OCDC, JB and I are going to take different sides of the ball. JB on defense, me on offense. We will first be coordinators for the visiting Calgary Stampeders, and then we will be the coordinators for your Toronto Argonauts. I'll start things off this week, JB. So looking at it from Calgary's standpoint, one of the things I like to do as a coach is to take a look at what the opposing defense struggled with in their previous game, because you know that they're getting barked at all week about it. And I look at the Argos defense last week. They struggled to contain the quarterback. They had trouble keeping Davis Alexander in the pocket, and it cost them on a number of occasions, sometimes because Alexander would run, sometimes because he would roll out, buy himself time, and make a pass downfield. We know Vernon Adams was able to escape the pocket a lot last week against Hamilton. He had a lot of success doing it. And so me as Calgary's offensive coordinator, I know that the Argos defense are going to be drilling that again and again and again. Do not let Vernon out of the pocket. Keep him in there. Even if it's a bit of a mush rush, keep him in the pocket. Don't let him extend the play. That being the case, I'm going to try and take advantage of that. I'm going to try and counter that as best I can and use that discipline against them. And so that means I'm going to run a lot of play action on first downs. I'm going to run play action on second and short, plays like that. I'm going to look for quick hitters in behind Judge and McManus. That's going to be part of my game plan. I'm going to take advantage also of the fact that your tackles might be a little bit wider aligned than usual. Your defensive ends, will be a little wider aligned than usual. And so I'm going to get my tackles to kind of push them around the world, make them take the long way around, and leave them one-on-one. Even if any of the Argos guys are getting home, I'm still going to force them one-on-one to take the long way around and see if I can't help prop that shelf up and give Vernon some time just to give him a really clean pocket. And he knows that he's got a clock running as those guys take the long way around to get to him. So all of that stuff is based on the struggles that Toronto had containing the quarterback next week. That's what I'm going to use to take advantage of Toronto's defense this week if I'm Calgary. Let's flip to you, JB. You are Calgary's defensive coordinator. What are you doing?
Well, I think if I'm Calgary, I'm looking at the Toronto film. There's not very much on there that scares me. There's certainly nobody I'm highlighting, nobody I'm going to double. I think that you're going to play a lot of man coverage. I don't think that the Argo wide receiver group is fast enough to really deserve zone, and certainly Arbuckle is not a running threat. So I'm going to play a lot of man. I'm going to force Arbuckle to make tight throws into tight windows. And I'm going to bring a lot of heat until that offensive line shows they can handle our games, handle the overload, whether they're able to adjust protection, depending on who is calling the protection at the line. It's a chance to be exotic. I think you see an opportunity there to really come after Arbuckle. And like you said before, you can really cheat and you can play a lot more games when you don't have to factor in somebody having contain. Because even if he gets outside, like a halfback, a corner can come off their guy and come get him. It's a big challenge because that's almost 2 extra rushers that you have if you're Calgary. So lots of heat, lots of games, lots of single high man. I think you're really going to play disrespectfully aggressive until you're forced to back off.
Switching over to the good guys, this is my offensive plan for the Toronto Argonauts. So first of all, they're coming in against a new defensive coordinator in Calgary, but not really a new defensive coordinator. Bob Slowick's been around for a long time. He was a DC in the NFL for 10 years, and of course was defensive coordinator in Montreal for a couple of years as well. He's been on this Calgary staff for, I think this is his 5th straight year now. So it's not really a new defensive coordinator, but the defense did look a little different. There's a lot of pieces I didn't know, players I wasn't very familiar with. Watching their film was interesting this week. It was not what stood out to me of Calgary's defense was how unexciting but positionally sound they were. This was very much an old school defense. They didn't run a lot, but what they ran was really good. It was fundamentally sound. Guys were in the right places. And this is a whole coaching philosophy. A lot of coaches are like this. Like, we're not going to run a billion different things. We're going to run these things, and we're going to run them as well as anyone can run them. It looked a little bit like that to me. And so it wasn't like I saw huge opportunities or like, oh, this doesn't make any sense. We're going to take advantage of this. No, everything was solid. And so instead, I started looking at some of the individuals and trying to find matchup advantages, areas you could pick on there. There's 2 things. So number one, a concern I have is defensive tackle Jalen Hutchings. He was a problem for Hamilton last week, especially with their center play. It got to a point where they actually started kind of pulling their center to have the guards double team Hutchings because he was causing so much trouble. They did that a few times because he just could not go one-on-one with the center. And when they forced him to do that, it was a problem, and he was in the backfield immediately. The good thing for the Argonauts is if Sirocco can't go this week and Nicastro is in there at center, he's one of the few centers in the league that can go one-on-one with a guy like Hutchings. Like, we saw him go one-on-one last week with Oakman and not really struggle at all with it, play really well against Oakman. So that, I think, is to Toronto's advantage. So if you can leave that and then save your double teams for the games that you're going to get on the outside from guys like Flo or Ramalade and help out wherever you can there, that is going to help Toronto tremendously. So that's going to be part of my offensive plan. Leave Nicastro one-on-one. Anytime they line up Hutchings as a nose, that's fine. No help. This is yours. You got this, Peter. That's all you. And that's going to help you. That's going to help buy time, and that's going to help Arbuckle stand confidently in the pocket to make throws. Now, the other two guys I think I need to mention are the two guys I think there's some vulnerability with, and it's the two halfbacks, both of whom are rookies. You've got the field half, Jaden Grant, and the boundary half, Sheldon Arnold. Different kind of players. For Jaden Grant, what I saw with him is that I want to put him in conflicts in space. I don't love his stop-start. And so if I can get him going in one direction, I feel like we can take advantage of that. And so I want to try and basically skinny post on one side, seam on the other side, make him choose. And whichever way he takes a step towards, you fire the football the other way, because I don't think his start-stop is at that elite level that we see with some halfbacks, even with Sheldon Arnold, for example, on the other side. And so I think that's an area they can take advantage in. Now, with Sheldon Arnold on the boundary half, this is a guy that's going to be matched up with Davaris Daniels quite a lot. And I found that he sits really high. He seems to be very worried about getting beat deep, about getting beat over top. And so he gives a pretty big cushion. I feel like there's space for Daniels to operate there, not just on hooks and sitting down at the sticks, but also in the sort of late moves that we see. Davaris is a really good route runner. You see those sort of late cuts in, late cuts out, and I think you're going to catch Arnold being a little bit too far off. And so it's those two guys I'll look to pick on and see if you can force a matchup advantage, especially with Davaris Daniels when he's lined up on Sheldon Arnold. So that is going to be my offensive plan. And then for the running game, run at Flo. Force him to be physical. If you're going to target one guy in the run game, force Flo to exert himself in the run game, and that's going to take a little bit out of his pass rush too. JB, finish it off for us. What is your defensive plan for the Toronto Argonauts?
Well, Calgary ran a lot. They were very successful on the run. They were really successful on second down. They had short downs to go on second down. Montreal ran on Toronto. So, like, the second best running team is Calgary. So it's not great for Toronto. So I think defensively, you have to stop the run. If you have to send an extra guy, that has to be the focus. You have to control that. I mean, I think there's two things. You have to stop the run, and you absolutely have to keep Adams inside the pocket. You can't let him have those free 10-yard first down drive continuers. Toronto's had a lot of success against Adams. So I feel confident that he will turn the ball over, but you have to wait for that. You just can't stop everything. So for me, the focus is stopping the run, setting the edge, keeping the quarterback in the pocket, and forcing Vernon Adams to throw, 350 yards. That has to be the focus, and then you can see if you have to, what you have to do with the secondary, but you can't do it all right now defensively, and right now the run is a huge problem. So that's where I'm coming out and sending extra people and hoping that that we can confuse Adams a little bit in the defensive backfield. Maybe you can catch him throwing a ball he shouldn't. He loves to throw on the run. Even if he's not running for first downs, he loves to run off platform, and you just can't let him do that. The defense breaks down. He's terrific with just flicking the wrist. He throws it 65 yards down the field, and it's very difficult if you're in man coverage to stay with a guy that long. So edge must be set. The middle has to be stout. Those are my two commandments for the defense this week.
It's funny, the success they've had against Adams is remarkable because he's a really good quarterback and he causes headaches for so many different teams. He's had a tough time. The last time he was at BMO Field, I think he was sacked 7 times, or was that, no, that was the game that he was picked like 5 times. I think.
Yeah, I mean,
yeah.
I mean, I feel that good that way, like that they have a pretty good sense of him, but um, he can still be incredibly dangerous. But
Yeah.
but you can't worry about him. You have to stop the run. They just they just crushed Hamilton with that run.
Let's move on to one thing. My one thing this week is running related, but it's for Toronto. I want at least one explosive run. That means 20 plus yards. I want a 20 plus yard run. That's what I'm looking for this week. If you get one of those, I think that is enough to get you some momentum and really kind of turn the tables on what was a horrendous week rushing in week 1. So that's my one thing, 120 plus yard run. JB, what about you?
Well, we talked about this last year when Kelly was out. Is if Kelly's going to be out, then you absolutely need one of the other two teams, whether it be special teams or defense, to come through with some scoring, because you're just not going to get 35 points from the offense. So I'm looking for the defense to come through here and add some scoring. So I want to, and this is a little preview of my Golden Fleeces. I want a defensive touchdown. They're at home. The defense is good, and the defense needs to try and pick up the offense a little bit while we're getting the show on the road.
And speaking of put me down for 20, let's get into it. JB, you had a celebratory week. Fleeces left, right, and center. Both of your bets won at plus money. You had Calgary on the money line, and you had the Davaris Daniels touchdown at plus 240. And had Davaris been stopped like an inch short, that probably would have resulted in me winning with my
that was only
touchdown.
fair. I've had some bad beats.
You have.
I was happy for that. No, it was great. It was the beginning of a new era.
And I was 0-2. I had Calgary in the money line, but I parlayed that with Edmonton for some reason, and that lost. And then I had Jared Daigie with a touchdown, thinking he'd get one of those, first and goal from the 1 opportunities to convert. Neither happened. So JB, with your 200 golden fleeces, that is now 234 golden fleeces. I am down to 180 golden fleeces already. So I got some catching up to do. I'll open it up with my 2 wagers for this week, and we'll follow it up with yours. And before we give you our wagers, remember that these are just fictional bets with fictional golden fleeces. Do not risk any of your hard-earned money on anything that we say. And if you are going to bet, never bet more than you're happy to lose as the cost of entertainment. For me, I'm going with my non-Argos bet. I'm going to take Winnipeg on the money line as underdogs in their home stadium. Plus 125, I thought, is a really good price. I don't know what to make of Winnipeg. I don't love teams coming off a week 1 bye either. I just think if you get a chance, they just don't lose in that building very often. I know BC has beaten them in that building, but it doesn't happen a lot. So I like that value. And for the Argos game, this was tough because the books don't know what to do with the Argos this week. They don't yet know who's playing quarterback. They don't really know who the starting running back is. And so it's hard to find Argos prop bets. So I'm going to go the other way. I feel like the Argos are going to be up in this game. And I feel like Calgary is going to be playing from behind. You saw last week Vernon Adams throw for 285 yards while leading by as many as like 25 points. And he still had almost 300 yards. I think if they're trailing, I think he just finds a way. Even on his game where he threw 5 picks, he was over 300 yards. The game where he sacked, 6-7 times, whatever, he throws for over 300 yards. So I think that's the way to go. I think they're going to be playing from behind, and I think they are going to put up a lot of passing yards. And I'm not sure what it will result in, but I feel like that's a good 10 golden fleeces there. Vernon Adams plus 300 yards at plus 125. All right, JB, over to you. What are your wagers for this week?
Well, for my Argos bet, as I mentioned, I've got plus 500 Argos defense scoring. I think they're up for it. I think they need to do it. They're at home, so I like that. I like that. I like those odds, and I like that idea. And for my second bet, I like that Winnipeg, but I don't want to just copy again. I'm going to go with Ottawa on the money line plus 155. I think that Ottawa, as much as sometimes, God, I hope it doesn't make me watch this game, but I think that Ottawa is going to be better, and I don't love. I thought Calgary looked okay, but I think Ottawa. I think Ottawa is better than Hamilton, so I got Ottawa sneaking at a win.
All right. I feel like you're. It's a curse to win. It's like you go into Vegas and win $5,000 in your first pull of the slot machine. That is a curse, JB, and I feel like you may be cursed for the rest of the season.
No, I like Ottawa at home. I think they can. I think they can. I think they can
I'm
win
just
at home
saying,
against
you got a
Alouettes.
plus
I think-
500 bet and a plus 155 bet this week.
And I love the Owls coming down off a high.
All right, we'll see how that works out. Let's transition into our new segment for this year, Challenge Flag. JB, last week you beat me. You were 3-1. I had to pick one game that you would get wrong. I picked Edmonton over BC. That was not the one that you got wrong. You got Montreal wrong. You had the Argonauts winning.
That was an entertainment purpose only special.
Yeah, so I'm going to have to see if I can tie you up this week at one. So let's go through the picks and see what you're going with. So BC at Winnipeg. Who's your play this week?
I like Winnipeg at home. I would not bet against Winnipeg at home.
Montreal at Ottawa. Are you going to hedge this?
No. Not hedging is for a more defensive me. I'm rolling with my Ottawa Red Blacks, all caps.
All right, and then Calgary at Toronto. What's your play?
I wanted to pick Montreal last week and I didn't. I'm gonna pick Calgary.
All right,
because I was mad at myself for not picking Montreal, so I'm gonna balance out the universe.
And Saskatchewan at Hamilton. Where are you going with that one?
I like Hamilton at home.
Hamilton at home. Okay. Well, last week I loved all your picks. I had the same picks last week. That made it really tough. This week you've only got one pick that I would have the same, which is I have Winnipeg beating BC. But yeah, these other ones I'm the other way. So this is tough because I got to choose one of three. Which do I think is most likely to happen here? I think it's got to be Montreal. I think Montreal goes into Ottawa and wins. I know they're maybe overconfident, but they looked really good. I think people are going to see this week, like that was not so much Toronto looking bad last week. This Montreal team's really good. And it's going to take some time this season for the other teams to catch up because Montreal with so many returners is basically playing at mid-season form and everyone else is coming out of the preseason. And so I think it's going to take a few weeks before other teams are able to catch up to them. So that is my challenge flag. I'm throwing it on your Montreal-Ottawa pick, and we are going to be tied up after this week.
No, we'll see.
We will wrap things up with our draw to win tickets, and our winner this time. First of all, this is Something in the Water Brewing's tickets, so this is their seats that they're giving to you, and every home game you'll have a chance to win the pair of tickets from Something in the Water Brewing. And our tickets this week are going to James O'Halloran. James, I sent you a DM on either Twitter or Blue Sky. I can't remember which platform it was on. I think it was Twitter. And so check that out and let's get in touch. And I will make sure that Something in the Water Brewing gets you your tickets. Congratulations on that win, and we'll see you at the game on Saturday. That's it, JB. Saturday, 4 p.m. at BMO Field. If you want to have a chat with JB and I, we will be at Something in the Water Brewing pregame. We're there pretty early because we have to get into the stadium and do all of our pregame routines. So make sure you get down there and join us at Something in the Water Brewing. Maybe see if some longboats there and try one of their award-winning beers while you're at it. That will just about do it for us on this pregame walkthrough episode of the X's and Argos podcast. For JB, this is Ben Grant saying so long, and may all your pre-snap reads be good ones. I'll see ya.
Go Toronto Argos, go, go! together fight the foe, foe.